Hey everyone, this is Bill Kenney, CEO and co-founder of focuslab and Odie, two global B2B brand agencies. I'm back with another episode of the Debrief. As a reminder, the Debrief is a series where I sit down with past focuslab or Odie partners and we relive their project, what it was actually like to go through the branding exercise, the highs, the lows, and everything in between. In today's episode, I had the pleasure of sitting down with Kylie Whitehead. She's a senior director of marketing and brand at a company called PolyAI. PolyAI has been around for 5 years. They are pre what we would consider the general public, the AI boom. Now let's think about the context of brand in that world, which is to say, they realized before the boom and into the boom that their current brand was not reflecting both the power and the maturity and everything else that was great about their business. It still looked more of like a scrappy startup. And that's not who they actually are, right? Brand is a game of perception, and the perception needs to be accurate if you want to appeal to the right customer. That was exactly the case with PolyAI. And now Kylie and I sit down and relive what it was like to go through that experience, how she decided when it was time to act, who to work with and why, and ultimately the outcomes that they're feeling already, having only launched a few months ago. Another wonderful conversation. Really enjoyed this one. I hope you enjoy as well. Kylie, welcome to the show. I'm excited to chat with you. This is the first time we're meeting. I say this over and over again on these episodes. I really enjoy that. Although we're a small team of 20 plus, I don't always get to meet with everybody we work with. So we're going to talk about the PolyAI project. But before we do any of that, I just want to pass you the mic and have you just tell people who you are and what you do at Poly.
I'm Kylie Whitehead. I'm Senior Director of Marketing and Brand at PolyAI. We build voice assistants for customer service. So maybe we'll talk about this a bit later, but when you've been at your bank and you're greeted by this message that says, please tell me in a few words why you're calling. And you're there going, agent, put me through to a human.
Yes.
We exist so that problem doesn't happen anymore, right? By making automated experiences that feel like talking to a person. And so I work on our marketing team. I was the first marketing hire. I've been with PolyAI for 5 years.
Wow.
And yeah, a huge amount has changed since then. And yeah, we worked together, was it last year on the rebrand?
Just last year. Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah. Did it launch this year? I start to lose track too.
I think it was last year. Then I was like, is it the year before? Bearing in mind that it still feels like January to me. So
yeah.
Time may be a bit off.
Yeah, I'm very interested. You've already spawned some questions I'm going to ask. I won't go there yet, but I'll allude to them maybe so I don't forget myself, which is 5 years now in an AI product. The AI world as we know it as consumers, I'll put myself on that side, is still very new. So I'm going to be very interested to hear what it was like to be kind of pre this AI wave, building an AI product and then having the wave show up. Very cool, very interesting. But let's not start there. So the purpose of these episodes is really just to kind of pull back the curtain and uncover what it's like for someone like yourself to consider a branding effort, to try to find the right partner, to then engage, go through that process. And what the hell is that like? Both scary and fun and all things in between. And then the outputs of that. So I'm going to start at the front side of that, which is to ask, how did you know that it was time to invest in brand?
Yeah, so I mean, a lot of things happening at the same time, right? So one was that we go to quite a lot of industry conferences, and we were seeing a lot of other companies that looked like us. They had the same colors, they had the same gradients, the logos were similar, even the messaging was similar. And so we knew we had a differentiated product, but that was just not reflected at all in our visual identity. And I like to think that maybe we were responsible for this sort of everyone looking the same. I'd like to think that we were really the trailblazers in that. Whether that's true, I'll leave that on the table. So we knew that our product differentiation was really about quality. We're a premium voice AI vendor. Our solutions are all about creating lifelike experiences, engaging experiences, not just something that is, cheap and easy and off the shelf. And our brand just didn't have that premium feel, right? It felt like a seed company. It felt like a Series A company. It wasn't reflective of where we had grown as a business, which was, like you just said, we've closed our Series C this year. So we were on a massive, thank you. We were on an amazing growth trajectory, and our brand was just sort of lagging behind. And we actually didn't go straight in for the rebrand. We did an entire repositioning project beforehand. So we work with this company called Zoom Marketing, and they do data-driven positioning. So basically, we got everything we thought about the story, the company, the values, the differentiators, all of that down. And then they took that away and tested that with our existing customers, and then with potential prospects as well, to really get their take on how we were talking about things versus how they were talking about things. And then we ended up on this customer-led voice assistance messaging, which is all about putting customers in the driver's seat of these conversations, not forcing people to act according to the kind of boundaries, limitations of the technology. So, you not have to say a keyword or press a button, just being able to be yourself. And over the voice channel as well, which is really, really difficult, especially over the phone in a contact center enterprise setting. Difficult thing to do. We probably started thinking about a rebrand, and then it was probably, a year and a half, 2 years until we actually came to the visual part of that. But I'm glad we did it that way. I think we learned a lot.
Yeah, interesting. So of note in your response there, first and foremost, yes, I think most of our clients, the lion's share, 90%, fall into the bucket of we didn't look the part anymore, right? We had grown. The perception of our business just was not accurate. We need to address that perception. That's kind of like brand in a nutshell anyways, right? So not surprising, especially when I was looking back through the case study of PolyAI on our current site, we do there's a little visual where it shows the previous identity. I mean, anybody that goes and looks at that, right, would say that does not look premium, even if we just wanted to stop the sentence there. So totally makes sense to me. Let's sit a minute on this like data-driven customer research. This is quite interesting. We have often in the past died on the hill of customers shouldn't define your brand. We've come off that hill, and personally, I've come off that hill, but there's still this area of like, how much does a customer inform versus how much is the core DNA and the purpose and the vision of the company, and where do those meet? So I'm very interested to hear what of that customer data and feedback that you got was truly kind of enlightening and really pulled you in a different direction, or was more confirming?
It was definitely confirming, right? We didn't have this big moment where we thought, oh my God, they've told us something we've never considered before. It was much more confirming. And it really gave us the language to talk about what we did in a way that wasn't super technical, because this was still sort of pre-Gen AI boom, right? We're living in the world of like Siri and Alexa and Google Home at this point. We're not in the ChatGPT world yet. And so, you could talk about LLMs and all of the amazing technology, but people would just glaze over, like that wasn't what our audience was interested in. So it really gave us the language to talk about our product, and also gave us this, I think it's recognition that we're a very empathetic company. Like this is something that we do. And as we work through brand values with focuslab, I think empowering was the term that we came, one of the values that we came away with, which was really all about like empowering our customers. So these are people who run contact centers in massive organizations, typically B2C, right? The kind of company that you might phone in if you face a query, really empowering them to empower their customers to have the conversations that they need to have in a way that is not painful. For
I love that empowerment thread goes all the way to the end, and it's actually the user the end user that becomes empowered as a result.
Exactly. And so as we were having these conversations, you can talk about automation and you can say, I mean, the main benefit of a lot of automation is going to be efficiency, right? Like you need to keep things running. You need to be able to answer calls. You've got people, calling in and waiting on hold for an hour. You can't afford, you can't maintain to hire and maintain a contact center to handle all of those. So you look to automation and you can tell this story. And it is an important story, and it really speaks to the business value that the buyer is going to get with something like PolyAI. But actually, these people are thinking all day about their customers. What are my customers? What experience are they having? How are we serving them? They're basically, CX leaders. They're just in this different side of the business than your traditional CX leader.
Sure.
And so really being able to understand that we wanted to speak to that at the beginning of this project was really useful. Did we stick to that all the way through? No. But I think it was really useful to start there.
Yeah. And okay, so something for the viewers and listeners to know. Things will change in project. Duh, maybe that's obvious, but maybe it's not. And what I would say is, as we experience this over and over again, those need not be points of frustration. Change is part of the process, right? Iterating, ideating, thinking, we spent time on this. Now we're putting it aside. That's not lost time. That is part of the journey.
Yeah, I think sometimes you need to see what you don't want to know what you do want. And so we were having these conversations about empathy, about empowerment, about really, helping people to do their jobs and then helping people to do the job of speaking to customer service. And then your team would do an excellent job of showing us something that, really spoke to that. And we'd be like, oh no, that's not who we are. That's not it. Yeah. And we didn't know that until we saw it. And then we went, oh no, actually that's, and when you look at the brand that we came out with, you can see it feels much more like a tech brand. It feels much more like an exciting tech company than perhaps like a warm, fuzzy, friendly consultancy, because I think that was the angle. As we started to see some of these options, we were like, oh no, this feels like a people company, and that's not what we are. We are a tech company, we are a product people company, but we're empowering people through that. So trying to find that balance was interesting
and tricky, right? The balance is always hard. Sure. Every rebrand project is always trying to find a balance. It's just the words on either side of that line are different for every company. Often, actually, they're kind of very similar, which is approachable, more premium, like you're trying, but not overly fun, which feels startup, more up enterprise, but not totally stuffy and boring. Everyone's trying to walk a line there, but they do end up in their own version of that.
Yes.
Great.
You are. I feel like you're making me out as a real cliche here, but it's all true.
Well, that is only because, and this is a humble brag, not a flex, we've done 600 projects. I only know that number because we just had our 14-year birthday a couple of weeks ago, and somebody on our team went digging to figure out how many projects have we completed. When you have that many projects, you can easily spot the trends. I've been here from day one, 14 years. These projects are the same to a large degree. Like I said, everyone's hunting for the same thing, to change the perception of who they are so they can reach where they're trying to go. And in doing that, we also work in B2B tech. The desires are often the same, so like it's not as much cliche as it is kind of the natural flow of what everybody's trying to achieve. Everyone that goes to the gym is trying to achieve the same thing as well, right? So their answers are probably the same.
It was a little bit of a flex. 600 projects.
Yes.
A good one.
Fine. It's cool.
It deserves that.
So, all right. So you realize we got to do this. You even said it. It was a year plus in the making before you even engaged on our side of the project. How does one go about finding a partner? I know how I might think about it, but I also understand from someone from your perspective, there are thousands of agencies that all tout themselves as this and as that, and the prices are all over the spectrum. You go from freelancer, you go from friend of a friend, all the way up to the biggest agencies in the world. And we're kind of jammed somewhere in the middle of all of that. What were you looking for in a partner?
Oh, I think the first challenge with any kind of finding any kind of creative partner is, how do I buy something that I just don't know what it is going to be? Like, I can't say to you, can you design this for me? And then I'll decide if I'm going to buy it, right? I have no idea.
Yes.
I can look at your past projects. I can speak to you guys. I can speak to all the team. We can ask you loads of questions. But ultimately, there's a point where you have to go, all right, let's do this. I don't know what's coming up. You just got to take that risk.
And I don't know if it'll work either, meaning the final output, because that's a whole nother like thing that can't be tested necessarily.
Yeah, exactly. And you ask this, you if you're like me and you just say whatever's on your mind and don't really have a filter, you say this to your creative agency and you say, like, why should I don't know, how can I work with you, because I don't know what I'm buying. And most people in your position are like, yeah, that is kind of the truth of it. You do have to take a punt. So when we started looking, I was looking for agencies who had a proven track record of B2B tech companies, right? Because it just wanted to feel comfortable. It just wanted to feel a little bit safe, a little bit like, yeah, I've made this decision because they have a track record of working with a company that I trust. And you guys had a couple of those logos, which was great. But then I also wanted to work with a team who really understood the challenges of the enterprise sale. So we are selling to pretty diverse teams, right? We want to talk to the contact center person, the IT person, the marketing person, so many different people across the companies. They've all got competing priorities. They've all got differing levels of understanding. And you need to be able to speak to all of them and not exclude any of them. So really being able to...
Easy, right?
I mean, if we crack that, then we're all millionaires. It's really complicated, and it's getting harder, right? Buying teams are getting bigger, they're getting more discerning, and so you really
more competition in the market. So like, how do you find your little wedge in there too? Yeah,
and again, this is still like pre-ChatGPT boom, which has been a whole thing for us. And then I think, you want to work with somebody who's really excited about what you do. So they start asking questions during when we're having these sales calls, basically. You'll find that some agencies just can't help themselves from asking questions and getting excited about your product. And some of them are maybe, hold back a little bit more. And it's really nice to see that energy. And then I think finally, it's a bit fluffy, but having a good relationship, because I knew going in that we were not necessarily going to be the easiest client. We're opinionated. We love telling stories. We have a lot of storytellers in the company, right? People who are really invested in figuring out how to do this. And we had a lot of like internal buy-in for the existing brands. Like we had people who had been there since the beginning, who felt strongly, as they should, of what the company had built up. And to them, the existing brand was a symbol of that. And so we needed to make sure that we could work with somebody where we could be a difficult client if we needed to. And just say it how it is and trust that we can just have these conversations like normal people and work it out together.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that, because it is one of the things, if not the thing, we care about the most.
Yeah.
Right. The craft at the end of the day starts to become table stakes. Industry specific helps a little bit, right? It gives some more security and like trust built in there. But at the end of the day, are we going to be able to go on a long, challenging journey? Different degrees of challenge for each project, but they are all challenging in their own right. And are we going to be able to do that like normal human beings, to use your words? Are we going to be able to have open, vulnerable conversations and not have feelings hurt? Are we going to be able to push each other, check each other? No, I don't agree with that, but let's talk about it.
Yeah.
That is instrumental in the success of a project. And we really try to lean on that as one of like our biggest differentiators, honestly. Like,
yeah. And I think, I'm not a designer. Luckily, I have a wonderful designer on my team. And I frequently catch myself saying things like, can we just give that a bit more pep? Can we make that feel a bit more premium? But you're saying this stuff that doesn't mean anything, and you want to work with somebody who's like, who understands that you're saying that because you don't know how to say what you mean. You don't really know what it is, but you know something doesn't feel right, and you need to start a conversation with that. And you do have to start with those cliches sometimes, and you need a designer who's able to go like, okay, let's work this out. I'm sure
discernment becomes like a superpower.
Yes.
Of like a craftsperson, right? Being able to read between the lines. You can say something to me and you don't have to say it the right way, and to other people might be confusing. But again, thinking about the experience, you're able to discern what that person is actually hungry for. You're like, oh, okay, you didn't say this, but I know actually even subconsciously, this is kind of what you want to see. So I'm going to come at it with something totally new that you didn't say I need new. You needed this. No, you actually need new. And I'm going to show you. And you're going to go, oh my God, that's it.
Yes.
So great. I'm glad you were able to. Yeah, listen, that's the game that we're in. I just put up this post on LinkedIn yesterday. We are not in the creative services game. We're in the C-suite alignment game, but you can change C-suite to whatever you want. Team alignment, business alignment, all this stuff is being able to take the information, discern it, put it back in people, and get everybody going in the same direction. Again, the pixels and the words and all that stuff kind of sort themselves out. Now we'll be measuring on, it's these types of things. Are we going to be able to like get on with these people and have like proper discussions and really kind of get into the nuances? Are they going to understand us, but also read between the lines on what we're saying?
Yeah.
I'm so happy you said that, because that's what I would want people to know outside of this recording. Like, that's where we really bring the value. That is also what makes a project go a lot smoother, for what it's worth.
Yeah, I think I'd forgotten about this until we were just talking, but one of the things I was nervous about before the project, and then afterwards looking back, I was really grateful for, is that I was really the conduit between the company, like PolyAI and focuslab. At no point did you insist that my CEO sits down in a 3-hour strategy meeting and then you ask him a load of questions that he's been asked millions of times before, right?
Yep.
And then he would have come out of that being like, why have you just wasted my time with this? And, would you have got what you needed? Maybe some of it, maybe not all of it. And at first that was a little bit frightening, because I'm like, well, this is kind of the process everyone else is pitching to me, is that they're going to do this discovery workshop. It's going to work like this. And I can see it, working like that. I've worked on projects like that before. But in the end, it really made me the face of this rebrand in the company, and my team, of course, my designer and my SVP of marketing, who were both amazing, and my CEO, to be fair, was incredible throughout this process. But it really allowed us to own it from that respect.
I was just going to share that the point you're making, and I'll just share from my perspective, not to cut you short. That role that you played in the project, which is the conduit, is such an important role. I can't emphasize how important. Like, you could not overstate how important that role is. If you feel unempowered or uncomfortable, any other adjective you want to insert there, you can't do that job well. It takes a certain person in these projects to really sit in between both parties, making all these things, putting it through, sharing the right amount, not sharing all of it, asking the right questions, not the wrong question, putting it back, and guiding both parties as something's being built is really, really hard. And I would tell you that a lot of projects hinge on that person's ability to do that. If they're unable to do it well, even out of their own capabilities, it might just be that the team is so large and C-suite is so big and so disjointed that they can't wrangle it. The project will fail. So I've kind of cut you off mid-thought, but I wanted to express basically a thank you and a praise to you, because I don't think you realize how important that role is to the success of a project.
Yeah, well, it felt, it felt great at the time. It felt very empowering for me. It enabled me to strengthen my relationships with the rest of the leadership team at PolyAI, and really just prove that I could run with this, and that I could also take on board what they were saying when they didn't know what they were saying. So then you have layers of extrapolation, because they're saying, well, I think this, and I'm like, all right, how am I going to try and explain this now to Focus Lab so that they can try and do something about it?
I guess there really is something there, which is there are going to be things that you're nervous about. Go on the journey and also let yourself accept the reality that the things you're nervous about might be the greatest wins. You don't know yet. It's this idea of like, if you're going to assume the worst, you have to give yourself the benefit of also assuming the best, because all options are open at the beginning. And it seems like maybe you've come to that realization at the end now and kind of putting yourself back in the project.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm really fortunate, right? I have really great relationships with the founding team. I've been here. I joined the company like 2 or 3 years in. I've been there for 5 years. You know, we've built really great relationships. We brought on an SVP of marketing while we were having these conversations about potentially doing this project, and she joined and she really helped me to push that forwards. And to communicate everything. And then I have my designer as well, who's again just like an absolute rock. And we had this brilliant team where we could just say anything to each other. Again, normal conversations like normal people, we can just talk. And then being able to have your team as an extension of that is really important. Because like you said, I'm sure anybody would do a good job of designing something pretty. But it's like, does that thing actually reflect what we want it to reflect, which is probably not what we thought in the first place.
That's right.
And B, can you help us have those conversations with each other so that we can really identify what those things are?
The facilitation side of the journey, super valuable, super duper valuable. Yeah, you can't just be throwing things over a fence. Well, I know how to make pretty things. I'm gonna keep throwing pretty things over the fence. It's like, no, we need to like break the fence down. We need to be meeting, talking, poking holes in things.
Again, it highlights the importance of the relationship, right? Because sometimes you're speaking to the designer and you're saying, I don't like this. I don't know why, but the thing is, I don't like it. And so again, you need to have that relationship where you can, and even at times like laugh about it, like we're laughing about it now because you
gotta be able to laugh about it.
Like it, you just have to be like, I know this is ridiculous and I'm being ridiculous, but that's where we are. So
I have to speak, right? All right, so let's move us into the project then, and we may have covered some of these, so feel free to kind of attack them quickly if that feels appropriate to you. I want to ask you 2 questions on opposite sides of the spectrum. The first is, what was the most challenging aspect of the entire project to either you or maybe just like your team in general?
I think that like initially committing to, we're going to do this. Once we had made that decision and moved into the project, I feel like there was lots of, moments when we're trying to communicate stuff and trying to understand why we're making certain decisions and make sure that everybody agrees with that. But really just getting to this point where we're like, this feels like a big risk. This feels like a really big moment for the company. It is a big moment for the company. And I think if you can get everybody aligned to say, yes, like we're ready to make this leap, it's a challenge, but the one that's kind of sets everything else up. Like I said, I'm really lucky with my team. So all the conversations throughout, I'm sure there was many difficult conversations throughout, but we were able to work through them. And so if you have that relationship, that transparency, I think it will be fine.
Yeah, I love that. It's basically all hinged on this idea of like, we're committed to do this. So that's no longer part of the challenge. We're committed. We see, not often, but we do see the inverse of that. Sometimes you can tell the project team, marketing, if you will, is committed, but maybe not people around it, whether that be all the way up to the founder, maybe still not fully committed, but letting marketing do their job, or maybe even at the board level, right? Maybe the board level is kind of like, I don't know if this is right. God, having that commitment makes everything easier. Great point.
Yeah, a lot easier. And where you are today is still going to be the benchmark. Like you're not going to say, we're never going to look back. You're going to look at where you are and compare what you're working on with that. But yeah, if you feel that people are hungry for it, it helps.
Yeah, absolutely. what was the most enjoyable aspect of the project, start to finish, post-launch, anything that you can wrap into what is most enjoyable?
I mean, the whole thing was great. We would have conversations and I would hear myself talking about the company, and I would kind of realize that the amount that I have learned over the years working here, and I would kind of, it was quite affirming for me in my career to think that, that I have got to this point and that I'm able to do this. So that was fantastic. Obviously, then the feedback and the praise and the love since it's been launched has been incredible. We had the brand party, just a little party in our office, and we got loads of balloons and we got everyone bucket hats printed.
Oh,
and
yes.
It was just this sea of macaw like everywhere, and you come out of the room and everyone's like, this is amazing, this is great. And then since then we've seen some really exciting things. We've put together a new events booth. We have competitors coming up to our booths at conferences saying, like, everybody's talking about you guys, you look amazing, and we're like, yeah, we do.
Yes.
And we have, our designer has just done an excellent job. She's been working really, really hard on a series of billboards and like taxi toppers, which are going to be live in Vegas next week, to coincide with a conference there. So we're starting to experiment with
hell yeah.
And just seeing the brand in all of these new places is it's just amazing.
Yeah, I love that. You noted the macaw, so some people might be like, what the hell is that? I know what that is. Macaw is the branded name of the color of PolyAI's primary, kind of this vibrant green yellow. Oh, I don't know. I wasn't on the project. I don't know how it was described, but it is named macaw. Yeah. And it's very recognizable. It definitely jumps out. So yes, I can imagine everybody wearing that color hat was pretty loud, but that loud is good.
Loud was what we wanted. We, I believe at one point we used the term invasive. And it's, when you're at an event with thousands of booths around you, thousands of salespeople trying to grab you to have a conversation, you just kind of want to punch somebody in the face and make them have a conversation with you.
Yes.
And that's what the was for us. Exactly.
Yeah. Oh, wow. I love this. And I can't wait till there's an event. And I suspect there would be at some point that y'all are at that I'm going to be there too.
Well, you won't
I
miss
love seeing client activity. Yes. Then that's the goal, right? Not everybody leans on color to be there and notice us. Funny enough, some people try to do it in different ways. They want to either do it through voice, like a very bold voice, but then they balance, to come back to that word, the color down, so not everything is shouting. Y'all have ended up in a really good position where I do feel like you're balanced as well. The macaw, the color palette is very much like, look at us, you're going to find us. But the tones of the other colors, the darks, really balance that out and make it feel sophisticated and mature, and not just loud for loud's sake. And then the technical aspects of the voice and the product, et cetera, it all balances out really well.
And we use these really nice kind of pastel colors, which I would have never have put with that like lime green. I would never have thought of that. But they're much warmer, they're much more human, they're much softer, and they speak to that, part that we thought was going to be the biggest part of our brand, that actually ended up being a bit more of an accent. But like you said, we're kind of balancing that with the language that we use, with the way that we speak, with this sort of high tech, bright, visible, invasive.
Yes. Yeah. Love. I'm here for that word. I've been doing it long enough where I'm like, go big, go bold, or like go home. Yeah. Right. Like own it, have an opinion on it and own it. It's okay to say like invasive. It's like, okay, I know what you mean by that. I know what we're trying to achieve.
It's like better than a bit more pizzazz.
Yeah. All right. So you might have answered the next question, which there are only two left. My next question was going to be, what return and positive outcomes have you seen as a result of having the new brand? I know you just raised the Series C, 50 million. Congrats on that. You've talked about some of the conference stuff. Is there anything else that you would share, or have you basically answered it?
Yeah, I mean, our brand awareness has gone through the roof, and that's, this brand project has coincided with us just scaling up, everything across all of our marketing channels. And I think that the room we have now, the space that we have within the brand to interpret things differently is so much, it's so much broader than it was before. And that's not because we have millions of colors or loads of different fonts or anything like that, but it just feels like there are elements that we can apply in different ways to really highlight different parts of the story, which is what's really enabled us to go with out of home, to improve our events presence, to do all of these other things to stand out. And so I think the result is just everything, just dialing everything up a little bit,
That's right. Yep. And then seeing the actual return on that, which you're talking about, which is basically better tools and the enablement to do those things. What will that lead to in 10 years, 15 years? That doesn't mean there might not be adaptations to the system or evolution of the system, but that new toolbox allows you to go much further than, say, kind of the old system, if you will. So, the return is yet to be determined in a lot of ways. That's no different than how long it took Nike to be able to sell a pair of sneakers for $1,000 that are made out of the same material as a Reebok sneaker that nobody cares about, right? It's all brand. Fun stuff. Yeah. All right. Final question. Since you know everything now, your words, not mine. Just kidding. If and when I say that, you sit down with a peer, another marketing person, and they're considering going through a rebrand, take Focus Lab out of it, and you're just trying to tell them, listen, okay, I learned a lot. Here's the one thing you got to get right. If you do nothing else, do this to set yourself up for success. What would you tell them?
Yeah, great question. I think find out what your CEO wants, and not just, in terms of, this is the message that we want to tell customers, or this is where we see the company in 5 years, but what they want as a person, what is going to make them feel good, because you're going to need them to push this out across the whole company, to get everyone else bought in. You need them on your side. So just invest that time and understand them as a person, as a founder, if they are a founder. And then once you can get that, it's just a case of being able to communicate that across.
That's the first time that's been said. So props to you. You're living up to your hype. I want to add additional light to that, to share from my perspective how important that is as well. I'm really glad you said that. This has become top of mind for me lately. So much so that I now do CEO to CEO calls. I didn't even do those when your project started, which was not that long ago. At the front end of every project, as part of the onboarding, I take a one-on-one call with the CEO to also uncover that exact question. What's your greatest desire in this rebrand? ? And just let them run with that thought. Yeah. Because it's very important to know what they're thinking, feeling. I go into more questions. What's your greatest fear? What would failure look like? I talk to them about what I think a level of involvement should be on their part. All these types of things to really help them understand how this project will flow. Typically, the marketing people just understand that more intuitively, being in the role that they're in. But really, my primary first question is that one that you've just asked. What's your greatest desire? Because then you can distill that down to how that shows up visually, verbally, all those types of things. Props to you for understanding the importance of that. I think that founders and CEOs, they're like in one of two camps. And this is no projection on your current CEO. They're in one of two camps. They're often looked at as they have strong opinions, but they don't understand what we're about to do. So we're going to keep them further away so we can do our job, and they've empowered us to do it. Or we love them. We want them in as close as possible. And that is also a balance of trying to figure out how to involve that person then, depending on what camp they fall in. But to your point, regardless of what camp they fall in or how you feel about their opinions or not, they have to be involved, if not only right at the front end, trying to figure out what are they actually looking for themselves in this project. And sometimes it's very personal. And as much as people like you and I would want to say these projects should not be personal, they should be very objective, you can't negate that. They become very personal. It is what it
absolutely.
is.
And, you know, there is a degree of subjectivity here. There isn't a science that is going to say, if you get this exact logo, you're going to increase revenue by 10% in the next year. Like, that's right. Not, you can't think about it like that, which can make it difficult for somebody in a executive position to want to invest in something like this, because it's very difficult to, you know, to predict that return. And I think on your note of some people maybe wanting to keep the CEO at a distance, I think that's fine, but also understanding what the CEO wants. Like if somebody feels like you're holding them at a distance, it's going to be very difficult for them to feel bought in. Yes. You actually do. So there's what's right for your team, but there's also what's right for them. And sometimes that might mean letting someone into the conversation that you didn't really want to. And I think that we probably had instances of that, and your team handled it wonderfully. So it's just a case of being like, sometimes somebody just needs to be heard. And so we need to bring that person in and make sure that they're heard, because ultimately that's important, even if it feels frustrating at the time.
Sure. And even if it's disruptive to the portion of the project you're in, none of that matters. It's taken me a long time to get there in my career to realize that, you know, there are these positions that people could take of like, oh, that's going to be disruptive, let's not blow up the project. No, that person needs to be heard. So anytime that I hear in a project, oh, the CEO has an opinion on this, and like we hadn't heard that yet, I'm basically saying, let's get that person in the meeting. Bring them to the next meeting. Like, let's hear I want to hear all of that. Let's have an awesome, fruitful, vulnerable conversation about, okay, how are you feeling? Why didn't that land for you? Let's not run that through 6 filters before. In both directions. Right. But yes, to your point earlier, they don't also need to be in every single meeting where we're talking about one shade difference of the macaw lime green. And that person's like, I don't need to be here for this. Right. So you have to use your best judgment.
Yeah, respecting like other people's time and other people's priorities, and just making sure you understand, you know, who wants to be involved and how. And sometimes people want to be involved and you don't want to, you know, have them involved. So you have to make those decisions as well. You can't just let everyone in.
Comes back to the conduit point, right?
Yes.
That's a lot of pressure on the person in the middle trying to determine the right time of those involvements and not. We didn't get to it. But maybe this will be like a final question, a little surprise. And there's one more thing, Steve Jobs moment. What has it felt like to ride this AI wave, seeing the before and after? This new world showed up and you were already there. Like, what are the feelings? What's the energy behind that?
Yeah, it's amazing. Like, you know, I've put in 4 years of my life, 5 years of my life, until this has sort of become common knowledge that this technology is actually real and amazing. And I think for those 5 years, we were sort of battling previous technologies. So like I spoke at the beginning of this call, everybody's understanding of voice AI was just, I'm just going to shout agent, or I'm going to mash my keypad, or I'm just going to swear, like say a whole string of swear words in the hope that one of them triggers something that puts me through. So we were really having to fight against that, to be like, yeah, that happened because this was a nascent technology that was used, you know, in its early stages. And yeah, it's going to suck for a while. We're at this stage where we've created something much, much better, much more realistic, much more lifelike, much more engaging. And to now have that as an expectation, like a mainstream expectation of this technology is really helpful to us. And it's really interesting because we're seeing a lot more executive teams and board members asking, what are you doing with AI? What are you doing with generative AI? And so, you know, it's coming from the top down now. Like, you need to be looking at this technology, which is really exciting and a little bit frightening, depending on how that person decides to interpret that. But obviously it comes with its own challenges of, there are a lot of, startups popping up who are basically putting thin wrappers around
Oh,
ChatGPT and sort of saying that they can offer things that perhaps don't take into account the nuances of actual enterprise problems.
I see.
There's a lot more noise, but
I see.
overall, I'd say it's a great thing. I think people are understanding this technology, and I'm sure we'll also have many laughs over the next couple of years when these things go wrong, like Google's
Yeah. Yeah.
AI summaries. It's been quite
So
amusing.
the net benefit is still largely positive. The analogy I was thinking about in my mind was like you were waiting for a wave, it finally arrived and you're surfing it, and all of a sudden there's like 100 other surfers on the wave, and you're like, well, I'm glad the wave is here, but like, damn, there's a lot of people, and it's kind of like messing up my ride a little bit. Yeah, I didn't think about
Yeah,
all the
maybe I
new
feel a bit more
players.
cocky about that because I feel like we're riding the wave and everyone else is just like trying to stand up on the board.
Oh, there
Maybe
you go.
you know.
There you go. That's a good finish. I like that. Yeah, see, the boldness is more than macaw. It's more than the color. It's also in the, yeah, we've been building this for a long time and we actually have something. All right. Awesome. Wonderful conversation. I'll end with just saying thank you for trusting us in the first place and taking that leap, hiring us, partnering with us, going through this journey. It's been nothing but a pleasure. Congrats again on the Series C raise. I saw the images in the New York Stock Exchange with the PolyAI banners and all that stuff, the newspaper articles you've been sharing. So it seems like there's even more momentum in wave forming for you all, and we couldn't be happier. We win when our clients win, period. End of sentence, right? That's how we succeed. So I'm very happy for you all, and thank you.
Thank you.